Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com. In this video we're going to take a look at the safe and unsafe cast operators in Kotlin. Let's start by creating a class which I'll call Tiger. So we'll leave this just as it is without any methods or properties. And I'll create a subclass which we'll call Cat. So that's going to inherit from Tiger. And to make this work we have to say that Tiger is open, otherwise by default it's final, meaning we can't create subclasses from it. I'm going to give Cat a single method called speak, and that's just going to print some kind of cat noise. Let's just put meow in there. Now let's create a variable. So I'll say val, let's call this cat Bob, and we'll say that this is a variable of type Tiger. Now subtype polymorphism means that wherever a superclass is expected or an instance of a superclass, we can use a subclass instead. So that means that even though this variable is of type Tiger, we can initialize it with something of type Cat, because that's a subclass of Tiger. However, look at what happens when we try to call the speak method of Cat. So I get an error that's now in red, it's not going to compile. And the reason is that this variable, which is of type Tiger, doesn't know anything about this speak method. So even though the object that it refers to does have a speak method, we can't directly call it via this variable. Let's take a look at the underlying Java class of the thing that this variable Bob refers to. I'm going to do print line and we'll print out bob.java class. That will give us the class that the underlying Java virtual machine has actually created. So if I run this, well, first I'd better actually comment out this error and then we can run it. And we can see that it says class cat. So the thing that this variable refers to is indeed of class cat. We just can't call the speak method via a variable of type Tiger. However, we can cast, or in other words, convert in a simple way, this variable to a thing of type cat, because after all it does really refer to a cat. To do that, we could use, for example, the unsafe cast operator. So I can say Bob as cat, and I need to put that stuff in brackets. And now we're saying here, treat this variable as if it is of type cat, and then try to call the speak method on that. And when we run this, it does actually work, and we get the method of cat being successfully called. Now this is called the unsafe cast operator, because while this is a cast, it's a kind of simple conversion where we're just treating one variable as if it was a different type to what it actually is. And it's called unsafe because this will actually throw an exception if it can't do the cast. So for example, let's write, and this time I'll store the result in a variable. Let's write val, I'll just call this x equals Bob as int. Now that's clearly not going to work because whatever this variable refers to, it's clearly not an int. And if I run this, you can see that we get an exception here. We get a class cast exception, and it says class cat cannot be cast to a java.lang.integer, which is the underlying type of int. So this is the unsafe cast operator. However, there is a safe cast operator, and that's just as with a question mark after it. And the difference is that if this can't do the cast, it will return null instead of throwing an exception. So to prove that, let's just print x out down here. And if we run that, we find that now the program runs without an exception and x is just coming out as null. And actually I've got a little warning squiggle under here as well, which if I hover over it tells me the value of x is always null. So I wanted to show you this at this point in this course, which admittedly is a little bit disorganized, because we're going to go on to look at some methods that the any class possesses, in particular the equals method, as well as the hash code and the toString methods. And the equals method, if we get IDEA, IntelliJ IDEA, to implement it for us, which is a pretty normal thing to do, that will typically use the unsafe cast operator, so it's good to be familiar with it. And we'll take a look at that maybe in the next video or the video afterwards. So that's it for this time. Until next time, Happy coding!